The universe has a sense of humor, a dark, twisted, watch me destroy everything you love kind of humor. And today that cosmic joke was on us. For 3,000 years, the galactic concordat maintained peace across 17 sentient species and 46 star systems. 3,000 years. Can you even comprehend that? 3 millennia of prosperity, technological advancement, and harmonious coexistence. And then the humans came along. Ambassador Luruk. "The council is ready for your testimony," said Gentar, his purple skin flushing a deeper violet with stress. Poor guy. As my administrative assistant for the past 30 cycles, he'd never seen me this agitated. "Thank you, Gentar. Any word from the orbital defense platforms?" I straightened my ceremonial robes, the heavy fabric scratching against my exoskeleton. "Nothing new, sir. The human vessels remain in a holding pattern beyond the asteroid belt. They haven't advanced further into our system since the incident. The incident. What a pathetic euphemism for the greatest catastrophe in our civilization's history." I nodded curtly and proceeded through the massive bronze doors into the Grand Council chamber. The amphitheater stretched out before me, thousands of representatives from across the Concordat sitting in tiered rows that reached toward the distant ceiling. The murmuring crowd fell silent as I approached the central speaking platform. Ambassador Loruk of Tellar Prime announced the Chamber Herald, voice booming across the vast space, summoned to provide first-hand testimony regarding the human incursion and subsequent events. I stepped onto the platform, feeling the weight of countless eyes upon me. The Supreme Counselor, Madame Vexana, peered down from her elevated position, her forearms folded in what I recognized as extreme displeasure. "Ambassador," she began, her voice like steel wrapped in silk, "explain to this council how a species we barely acknowledged has brought us to the brink of interstellar war." I cleared my throat, mandibles clicking nervously. "Supreme Counselor, esteemed representatives of the Concordat. 3 solar cycles ago, human exploratory vessels entered the Tellar system without authorization or prior communication. Our orbital sentries detected their approach and followed standard protocol for unidentified vessels. Warning signals were transmitted. Defensive formations were assumed. No aggressive actions were taken. And yet," interrupted Councillor Drav, the Saurian representative, "here we stand with 17 of our nursery ships destroyed and thousands of hatchlings lost." His voice cracked on the final word, unusual for the typically stoic Saurians. "Yes, Councillor," I continued, fighting to keep my voice steady. "The humans claim they misinterpreted our nursery fleet's movements as aggressive posturing. They claim they were unaware of the precious cargo aboard those vessels." "Ignorance is no excuse for genocide," shouted a representative from the back rows, triggering a cascade of angry outbursts across the chamber. Madame Vexana slammed her ceremonial staff against the floor 3 times, restoring order. "Continue, Ambassador Loruk. What happened next?" I took a deep breath. "According to the humans' transmission, they believed our nursery guardians were preparing to attack their exploratory vessels. They responded with what they termed proportional defensive measures. Their energy weapons targeted the guardian vessels exclusively. But the resulting power surges triggered catastrophic cascades through the connected nursery pods. But the memory of those moments played in my mind with horrific clarity. I had been aboard the command vessel, overseeing the seasonal migration of hatchlings to our colony worlds. The human ships appeared without warning, sleek, predatory vessels unlike anything in our records. When our guardians moved to protective positions around the nursery pods, the humans opened fire. The screams of the caretakers still haunted me. The emergency communications channel had been flooded with their desperate pleas as life support systems failed and nursery pods lost power. 17,000 hatchlings. Our future. Gone in minutes. After the attack, I continued, the humans attempted communication. They expressed what they claim is profound regret. Their ambassador, a female called Tessa Morgan, has requested permission to address this council directly. The chamber erupted again, this time in sounds of disgust and outrage. Silence. commanded Vixana. Ambassador Loruk, you have met with this human? I have, Supreme Counselor, under heavily controlled conditions aboard our diplomatic vessel. And your assessment? I paused, considering my words carefully. The humans are perplexing, physically unimposing compared to most concordat species, soft-bodied, fragile-looking, and yet, their weapons technology surpasses our most advanced systems by several generations. Their ships outmatch ours in both speed and defensive capabilities. And there is something in their demeanor that suggests they are accustomed to conflict in ways we are not. Are you suggesting we should fear these newcomers? Asked Counselor Xian of the Felician Collective, her feathered crest rising in alarm. I am suggesting, Counselor, that we should understand them before we decide whether to eradicate them or bring them into the Concordat. They have expressed deep remorse for what happened. They have offered reparations. Reparations? Spat Counselor Drav. What reparation could possibly compensate for our lost young? I gripped the sides of the platform. They have offered something unexpected. Something that, frankly, has our scientists baffled. They call it regenerative technology. They claim it can revive our hatchlings. A stunned silence fell over the chamber. Impossible, whispered Vixana, but I could see a flicker of desperate hope in her compound eyes. I thought so too, I replied, but they have provided proof-of-concept data that our top xenobiologists are currently analyzing. Preliminary reports suggest their claims may have merit. This could be a trap, warned Xian, a ploy to gain access to our remaining nurseries. Possibly, I conceded. Which is why I have taken the liberty of inviting a human delegation to a neutral location space station Proxima, in the uninhabited Catadal system. They will bring a demonstration of their technology. We will bring a single damaged nursery pod that still contains unviable hatchlings. If their technology works as claimed, we may have reason to pursue diplomatic solutions rather than military ones. Vixana leaned forward. You have exceeded your authority, Ambassador. With respect, Supreme Counselor, I have acted in accordance with first contact protocols established under Concordat Resolution 7729. As the ranking diplomat present during initial contact, I am authorized to establish preliminary dialogue parameters. Technically correct, muttered Counselor Drav, but pushing the boundaries of your mandate. I spread my upper limbs in a gesture of candid admission. The alternative was an immediate military response against a species whose capabilities we do not fully understand, using weapons technologies we cannot match. I deemed it prudent to explore alternative approaches first. Vixana studied me for several uncomfortable moments. When is this demonstration scheduled? 2 cycles from now. I have already dispatched Nursery Pod RK-519 with a minimal escort. The humans will arrive with a small delegation led by Ambassador Morgan. And if this is a trap? Asked Xian. Then we lose one already damaged pod containing no viable hatchlings, and we gain definitive proof of human duplicity justification for a united Concordat response. Vixana exchanged glances with the other senior counselors before speaking again. Very well, Ambassador Loruk. You will proceed with this demonstration. But you will not go alone. Counselor Drav will accompany you along with a military contingent commanded by Fleet Admiral Pax. I bowed respectfully, while inwardly cursing. Admiral Pax was notorious for his aggressive tactics and disdain for diplomatic solutions. His presence would significantly complicate negotiations. As you wish, Supreme Counselor. This council will reconvene after the demonstration to determine our course of action. Until then, our military forces will maintain defensive positions in all border systems adjacent to human territory. The formal meeting concluded, but as I turned to leave, Vixana gestured for me to approach her private chamber adjacent to the main hall. Once inside, with the doors sealed, her formal demeanor cracked slightly. Loruk, old friend, speak freely now. Do you truly believe these humans can revive our lost young? I sank into a sitting posture, suddenly feeling the exhaustion of the past several days. I don't know, Vexana. Their representative seemed sincere. But there's something about humans that's unsettling. Explain. Yes. When Ambassador Morgan spoke of the attack, she expressed what appeared to be genuine horror and remorse. And yet, beneath that, I sensed something else. A kind of readiness, as if violence is never far from their thoughts. Vexana's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. You think they are dangerous? I know they are. Their historical records, what little they have shared, suggest a species that has spent most of its development at war with itself. They have survived multiple near-extinction events of their own making. And each time they have emerged stronger, more resilient. Then perhaps Admiral Pax is right. Perhaps we should strike now before they establish a foothold in this sector. I shook my head. That would be a catastrophic mistake. If we attack, they will respond. And I fear their response would make the loss of our nursery fleet seem insignificant by comparison. You sound afraid, Loruk. I am afraid, Vexana. Not just of what they might do to us, but of what we might become if we go to war with them. The Concordat has known peace for so long. Our species have forgotten the true cost of conflict. And the humans. They remember. It's written in everything they do, everything they build. Their ships aren't just transportation, they are weapons platforms that happen to carry passengers. Their diplomatic vessel had more firepower than our military escorts. Even their civilian clothing incorporates defensive elements. Vexana moved to a viewing portal that overlooked the capital city below. Then what do you recommend? We proceed with the demonstration. If their regenerative technology is real, we negotiate from a position of mutual benefit. We have resources they need. They have technology we want. There's potential for cooperation without bloodshed. And if the technology is a deception? I joined her at the portal. Then we still learn valuable information about their capabilities and intentions without committing our full military force to a confrontation we might not win. She turned to face me, all four of her eyes blinking in rapid succession, a sign of deep distress among her kind. The loss of the hatchlings has affected every species in the Concordat, Loruk. There are calls for retribution from every member world. I may not be able to contain those demands for long. I understand. That's why this demonstration is so critical. Give me this chance, Vexana, 2 cycles. That's all I ask. After a long moment, she nodded. 2 cycles. But be warned, Admiral Pax will have strike forces positioned throughout the Cadal system. If the humans make any aggressive move, he will respond with full force. Understood. As I left the council chambers, Gentar fell into step beside me, his tablet clutched anxiously in his upper limbs. How did it go, sir? About as well as could be expected. We have approval for the demonstration, but Admiral Pax will be breathing down our neck the entire time. Gentar winced. That complicates matters. Indeed. Any updates from our science team regarding the human data? Yes, sir. They have completed their preliminary analysis. He handed me the tablet. They say it's either the most revolutionary biotech they have ever encountered or the most elaborate hoax. I skimmed the report as we walked toward my transport. And their professional opinion? Gentar hesitated. They are divided, sir. But Dr. Lavos, the lead xenobiologist, believes the human claims may have merit. The theoretical framework is sound, even if the practical application seems incredible. Resurrection technology, I murmured. If it's real, it changes everything. Not just for our current crisis, but for all Concordat species. Do you trust them, sir? The humans? I considered the question carefully as we boarded my private shuttle. Trust is perhaps too strong a word, Gentar. Let's say I'm cautiously optimistic about their technology and vigilantly wary of their intentions. The shuttle lifted off, carrying us toward the orbital docking station where my diplomatic vessel awaited. Through the viewport, I could see military ships moving into defensive formations around the planet's sleek, deadly guardians of our homeworld. But compared to what I'd seen of human vessels, They suddenly seemed pitifully inadequate. "Sir," said Gentar, interrupting my thoughts. "There's a secure transmission coming through from the human ambassador. Put it through." The communication screen flickered to life, revealing the face of Ambassador Tessa Morgan. By human standards, I assumed she was physically unremarkable, pale skin, dark hair pulled back tightly, eyes a startling blue. But there was an intensity to her gaze that I found distinctly unnerving. "Ambassador Loruk," she greeted me, her translator converting her strange vocal sounds into perfectly accented Concordat standard. "I have received confirmation of our meeting at Proxima Station. My team is prepared with all necessary equipment for the demonstration, as are we, Ambassador Morgan. I should inform you that Councillor Drav and Admiral Pax will be joining us." A flicker of something concern? Annoyance? Crossed her features before her diplomatic mask reasserted itself. "I understand. We welcome the opportunity to address Concordat leadership directly. I should warn you, Admiral Pax has strong opinions regarding your species' first actions in our territory." She nodded, her expression serious. As he should. What happened was unforgivable. "We don't expect forgiveness, Ambassador Loruk. We only ask for the opportunity to help mitigate the damage we have caused, if possible." A noble sentiment. "But tell me honestly, Ambassador, if our positions were reversed, if a Concordat vessel had accidentally destroyed a human nursery ship, what would your people's response be?" Her pause was telling. "I won't lie to you, Ambassador. There would be calls for retaliation. Humanity has not always been measured in its responses to perceived threats. And yet you ask us to be measured now. I ask you to give us a chance to make things right. Or at least, as right as they can be made. The alternative benefits no one." I studied her face, searching for deception. "Very well, Ambassador Morgan. We will proceed as planned. But be aware that tensions are extremely high. Any unexpected moves, any deviations from the agreed protocols, could trigger a military response." "Understood. We will maintain strict adherence to protocols." She paused, then added, "For what it's worth, Ambassador Loruk, I am deeply sorry for what happened. All of us are." The transmission ended, leaving me staring at a blank screen. "Do you believe her?" asked Gentar quietly. I sighed, my exoskeleton creaking as I settled back into my seat. "I believe she regrets the destruction of our nursery ships. What I don't know is whether that regret stems from moral conscience or practical concerns about facing the united might of the Concordat." As our shuttle docked with my diplomatic vessel, I gazed out at the stars, wondering if we were about to witness the beginning of a new era of interspecies cooperation, or the opening moves in a conflict that would shatter 3,000 years of peace forever. 2 cycles. In 2 cycles we would have our answer. And somehow I suspected that neither I nor the Concordat would ever be the same again. Space Station Proxima loomed before us, a massive structure of gleaming metal and pulsing energy fields suspended in the darkness between worlds. As our diplomatic vessel approached, I couldn't help but notice the military ships lurking just beyond sensor range, both ours and, presumably, human vessels hidden among the asteroid field. So much for neutral ground. "Ambassador Loruk," Admiral Pax's voice grated against my auditory receptors like mineral sand. "I wish to review the security protocols one final time." I suppressed a sigh. We'd been over this 14 times during our journey. "Of course, Admiral." The security officer, a hulking Dravican with scarred battle plates, activated the holographic display. A 3-dimensional representation of the station's central laboratory appeared, rotating slowly. "The humans will be limited to this section only," he said, highlighting an area comprising less than 10% of the station. 5 delegates maximum, all unarmed. Our security forces will maintain positions here, here, and here. Red dots appeared at strategic locations. "And the nursery pod?" asked Councillor Drav, his normally impassive face tight with grief. As a Saurian, he'd lost over 300 of his own offspring in the attack. "Secured in the auxiliary bay," replied the Admiral. The damaged pod contains 37 unviable hatchlings, as agreed. The humans will be permitted to bring their equipment into the main laboratory, but the hatchlings will be transported there only after our xenobiologists have verified that no weapons or harmful substances are present. I nodded. The humans have agreed to all these conditions, Admiral. They understand our caution. Their understanding is irrelevant, Pax snapped. They claim remorse for slaughtering our young, yet they bristle at basic security measures. Their actions speak louder than their diplomatic platitudes. They haven't bristled at anything, I countered. They have accepted every restriction we have imposed without complaint. Which only makes me more suspicious, Pax muttered. No species surrenders leverage so easily unless they are hiding something. Before I could respond, Gentar approached with an update. Sir, the human vessel has docked at the designated port. Ambassador Morgan requests permission to board with her delegation. Granted, I said. Admiral, shall we proceed to the reception area? Pax flicked his secondary appendages in reluctant agreement. Very well. But my security team maintains weapons-ready status. Let's try not to point guns at the people who have come to help us resurrect our dead children, shall we? I suggested, not bothering to hide my sarcasm. The Admiral's facial plates shifted into what passed for a smile among his kind. I won't point weapons at them, Ambassador. Unless they give me reason to fire them. The walk to the reception area felt longer than usual, tension building with each step. When we arrived, the airlock was just cycling open, revealing Ambassador Morgan and her team. The 5 humans entered the station, moving with that strange, upright gait that still struck me as inherently unstable. Morgan led the group, flanked by 2 individuals in what appeared to be scientific attire and 2 others in more rigid clothing security personnel, undoubtedly, despite being officially designated as administrative support. Ambassador Larouk, Morgan greeted me, performing the Concordat gesture of respect with surprising accuracy. Thank you for arranging this demonstration. We understand how difficult this must be for all of you. Ambassador Morgan, I replied, returning the gesture. Allow me to introduce Counselor Drav of the Saurian Confederation and Admiral Pax, commander of the Concordat Defense Force's 3rd Fleet. Morgan turned to each of them, offering the same respectful gesture. Drav returned it stiffly. Pax didn't bother. These are my colleagues, Morgan continued, seemingly unfazed by the Admiral's rudeness. Dr. Rohan Varma and Dr. Lena Novak are xenobiology specialists, and these are Thomas Kelly and Diana Wu, administrative support. I noted the subtle tension in the 2 administrative humans' posture. Definitely security personnel. But then again, we'd expected nothing less. If you will follow me, I said, we have prepared the laboratory according to your specifications. As we walked through the station corridors, I observed the humans closely. They moved with practiced ease despite the artificial gravity being calibrated for Concordat physiology. They'd clearly adapted their inner ear functions, another indication of their species' impressive biological adaptability. Your station is remarkable, commented Dr. Varma, his eyes moving rapidly as he took in the architecture. The passive energy regulation systems alone must reduce consumption by at least 40% compared to human designs. 47, actually, I replied, somewhat surprised by his technical knowledge. Though I'm curious how you made that assessment so quickly. He smiled, that strange baring of teeth that humans insisted was friendly. We have been studying Concordat technology since our first long-range scans of your systems. Your efficiency metrics are inspiring. The casual admission that they'd been observing us long before official contact sent an uncomfortable ripple through my exoskeleton. How long had they been watching? What else did they know about us that we hadn't willingly shared? Admiral Pax noticed my discomfort. You monitored our systems without permission? He asked, voice dangerously low. Morgan intervened smoothly. Standard xenoanthropological protocols, Admiral. Remote observation only, through public electromagnetic transmissions. We have found it best to understand new civilizations before making contact, to avoid cultural misunderstandings. Like mistaking nursery ships for military vessels? Counselor Drav asked acidly. Dr. Novak winced visibly. That failure was in our tactical systems, not our cultural analysis. We had identified your nursery architecture correctly in our database. The weapons officers simply didn't check that database before responding to what they perceived as a threat display. A tragic error in communication, Morgan added quietly. One we hope to begin rectifying today. We reached the laboratory, a spacious chamber filled with equipment both concordat and human in design. The human scientists immediately moved toward their apparatus, checking connections and power levels. When will the hatchlings be brought in? Asked Dr. Varma. Once our team verifies your equipment, I replied, gesturing to the concordat scientists waiting nearby. He nodded. Of course, we will assist in any way needed. The verification process took nearly an hour, with our xenobiologists examining every component of the human technology. I watched the humans during this process, noting their patience despite the obvious suspicion directed at them. Especially interesting was how they answered every question clearly and completely, without the defensive posturing I'd expected. Finally, the chief xenobiologist approached me. We have found no weapons, toxins, or harmful radiation sources, Ambassador. Their equipment appears to be exactly what they claim, advanced bioregenerative technology. And your assessment of its potential? She hesitated. If it functions as described, it's beyond anything the Concordat has developed. The cellular manipulation capabilities alone represent a quantum leap in medical science. I nodded. Then we proceed. Admiral, please authorize transport of the nursery pod. Pax gave the order, his expression still rigid with mistrust. Minutes later, a sealed container was brought into the laboratory. Inside, visible through transparent panels, were 37 tiny forms concordat hatchlings from various species, all victims of the attack. Their bodies were preserved but lifeless, cellular decay halted by stasis fields but not reversed. Counselor Drab made a small, pained sound at the sight. 3 of the hatchlings were saurian. Dr. Novak approached the container with reverence. With your permission, we will transfer them to our regeneration chamber individually. And we will begin with one, so you can observe the entire process before deciding whether to continue. I looked to Drav, who gave a tight nod to proceed. The humans worked with surprising efficiency, their movements precise and coordinated, as if they'd performed this procedure countless times. Perhaps they had. The thought of what circumstances might have driven them to develop resurrection technology was disturbing. Dr. Varma gently lifted a Teleran hatchling, one of my own species, and placed it in their central apparatus. We have chosen to begin with this one because Teleran physiology is closest to the baseline parameters our system was designed for, he explained. The process should take approximately 20 minutes for full cellular regeneration. What exactly does your technology do? Asked our xenobiologist. Put simply, it reverses entropy at the cellular level, Dr. Novak explained. Every cell contains the information needed for life, the programming, if you will. Our system reactivates that programming, repairs damaged structures, and restarts the biological processes that constitute life. That's impossible, muttered Admiral Pax. Life cannot simply be rebooted like a computer system. Dr. Varma smiled sadly. 10 years ago, we would have agreed with you, Admiral. Necessity drove our innovation beyond what we thought possible. What necessity? I asked, suddenly intensely curious about these beings who spoke so casually of conquering death. A shadow passed over Ambassador Morgan's face, or Ambassador Luruk. A conflict that nearly ended our species. When 90% of your population dies in less than a year, you either develop miraculous technology or you accept extinction. We chose the former. Before I could ask more questions, Dr. Novak called our attention to the monitoring displays. The cellular regeneration has begun. You can observe the process at the molecular level here. The screens showed microscopic images of the hatchling cells. As we watched, damaged structures began to repair themselves. Dead tissue rejuvenated. Neural pathways reconnected. Our xenobiologist seemed at a loss for words. The implications are staggering. Yes, agreed Dr. Varma. The technology has applications far beyond emergency resurrection. Disease treatment, aging reversal, limb regeneration, we have only scratched the surface of its potential. 15 minutes into the process, the monitoring equipment began emitting a steady, rhythmic tone. "What's happening?" demanded Counselor Drav. Dr. Novak's face broke into a genuine smile. "That's a heartbeat, Counselor. Your hatchling's heart has restarted." The laboratory fell silent except for that persistent beeping. Oh, a heartbeat. Where there had been only death, now life pulsed again. 5 minutes later, the process completed. Dr. Varma carefully lifted the hatchling from the chamber. The tiny Teleran moved, its limbs twitching slightly as neural functions resumed. "It's alive," whispered Drav, mandibles quivering with emotion. "Yes," confirmed Dr. Novak. "Cellular function is at 97% of normal parameters and stabilizing. Neural activity is strong. With proper care, this hatchling should develop normally with no lasting damage from the incident." I approached slowly, hardly daring to believe what I was seeing. The hatchling's eyes that had been dull and lifeless less than an hour ago tracked my movement. When I extended a gentle appendage, the tiny creature grasped it reflexively. "How?" I asked, voice barely audible. "How is this possible?" "The same way all great scientific advances happen," said Dr. Varma. "Desperate people refusing to accept limitations." Admiral Pax had moved closer, his earlier hostility temporarily forgotten as he stared at the living hatchling. "You could have demanded anything in exchange for this technology. Territorial concessions, resources, military alliance. Why offer it freely?" Ambassador Morgan stepped forward. "Because some debts transcend politics, Admiral. We took these lives through our error. Returning them is not a bargaining chip, it's the bare minimum of what justice demands." Counselor Drav turned to her, his voice thick with emotion. "You understand that this doesn't erase what happened? The trauma to our societies. The breach of trust." "Of course," she replied. "We don't expect forgiveness, Counselor. Only the opportunity to begin making amends." The implications crashed through my mind like a meteor shower. If the humans could resurrect all 17,000 lost hatchlings, if they were willing to share this technology with the Concordat. "What do you want?" I asked Morgan directly. "Not as reparations for the incident, but as a species new to this sector. What are your goals?" She considered the question carefully. "Peaceful coexistence primarily, trade relations, cultural exchange. We have spent too much of our history fighting each other and other species we have encountered. We'd like to try a different approach with the Concordat." "And if we refuse? If we demand you leave this sector entirely?" A flicker of something dangerous passed behind her eyes, so quickly I almost missed it. "Then we would respectfully comply, while hoping for improved relations in the future." Admiral Pax made a skeptical sound. "Just like that? You'd abandon the territory you have already begun colonizing?" "We have exactly 2 outposts in this sector, Admiral, both on uninhabited planets outside your claimed space. Neither represents a significant investment we couldn't relocate." She paused. But I hope it doesn't come to that. What we could accomplish together far outweighs what either civilization could achieve alone." I looked down at the hatchling, now fully alert and making the soft trilling sounds typical of healthy Teleran young. A miracle, by any definition. "How long would it take to revive all the hatchlings from the destroyed nursery ships?" asked Counselor Drav. Dr. Novak calculated briefly. "With the equipment we have brought, approximately 6 months. If we are permitted to bring in additional regeneration chambers and staff, perhaps half that time. And the technology transfer? How soon could our scientists begin learning your methods?" "Immediately," said Dr. Varma. "We have prepared comprehensive documentation and training protocols. Within a year, your specialists could be operating the systems independently." The laboratory fell quiet as we all processed the implications. After a moment, I handed the revived hatchling to our xenobiologist for monitoring and turned to my colleagues. Admiral Pax, Counselor Drav, I suggest we discuss our response privately. They nodded, and we withdrew to an adjacent conference room, leaving the humans with our security team. Once the door sealed behind us, Pax spoke first. "It's a trap." "A trap," I repeated incredulously. "They just resurrected one of our dead. What possible trap could that be?" "Technology dependence," he insisted. "Once we rely on their systems, they will have leverage over our entire civilization." "They are offering to teach us, not just provide the equipment," countered Drav. "That's hardly the strategy of someone seeking to create dependency. Unless the complete technology they share has deliberate limitations or hidden vulnerabilities," Pax argued. "We have no way to verify their sincerity." I shook my head. "What would you have us do, Admiral? Reject their offer? Go to war instead? Over what a tragic mistake they are making extraordinary efforts to rectify. They killed our young." Pax slammed an appendage against the table. "There must be consequences." "And what consequences would satisfy you?" asked Drav quietly. "The deaths of their young in return? Would that restore what we lost, or would it simply make us what we have always feared becoming?" The Admiral's facial plates shifted in frustrated patterns. "I don't trust them. Their capabilities are too advanced, their arrival too convenient, their contrition too perfect." Perhaps I acknowledged. "But consider this: if they wanted to conquer the Concordat, why not simply attack in force? Why this elaborate charade of diplomacy and reparation? Their ships outclass ours. Their weapons overpower our defenses. If conquest was their goal, why aren't we already defeated?" Pax had no immediate answer. Counselor Drav extended his primary limbs in a gesture of tentative acceptance. "I propose we accept their offer to revive our hatchlings and learn their technology. But we maintain heightened security and establish a joint scientific commission to thoroughly examine everything they provide." "A reasonable compromise," I agreed, turning to Pax. "Admiral?" After a long moment he gave a reluctant nod. "I will advise caution to the Council, but I won't oppose the arrangement. However, I want military observers present during all human activities in Concordat space, and I want our fleet modernization program accelerated." "Fair enough," I said. "Then we are agreed?" Both indicated assent, and we returned to the laboratory. The humans stood exactly where we'd left them, though I noticed Dr. Novak was gently playing with the revived hatchling, who seemed quite taken with her strange five-fingered hands. "Ambassador Morgan," I began formally. "The Concordat provisionally accepts your offer of regenerative assistance and technology transfer, with conditions regarding security and oversight that we can detail in a formal agreement." The relief on her face seemed genuine. "Thank you, Ambassador Loruk. We accept your conditions and welcome your oversight. When would you like to begin processing the remaining hatchlings?" "Immediately," said Counselor Drav, his voice firm. "Every moment they remain in stasis is a moment too long." Dr. Varma nodded. "We will start with the Saurian hatchlings, if that meets with your approval, Counselor." Drav's normally rigid posture softened visibly. "Yes, thank you." As the humans began preparing their equipment for the next resurrection, Admiral Pax moved closer to me. "I still don't trust them," he murmured. "Nor should you entirely," I replied quietly. "Trust must be earned over time, but today they have earned the right to try." Later, as I watched the humans working tirelessly to restore life to our lost young, a strange thought occurred to me. For 3,000 years, the Concordat had maintained peace through careful diplomacy, shared prosperity, and mutual respect. We had forgotten the harsher lessons of our ancient histories, that sometimes the most profound connections between civilizations are forged in the aftermath of tragedy. The humans had made a terrible mistake. They had taken what was most precious to us. And now, in their determination to make amends, They were giving us something equally precious in return, not just our children's lives, but a technology that would transform our understanding of life itself. Perhaps this was the cosmic joke after all, that our first violent encounter with humanity would lead not to war, but to a deeper peace than the Concordat had ever known. That these strange, contradictory beings capable of both tremendous destruction and miraculous healing might become our most valuable allies precisely because they understood the cost of conflict in ways we had forgotten. As Ambassador Morgan caught my gaze across the laboratory, I saw in her eyes the weight of her species' violent history and their desperate hope for a different future. In that moment, I knew that whatever came next between our civilizations would reshape the galaxy forever. 3,000 years of peace had been shattered the moment they touched our young. But perhaps, just perhaps, what would rise from those fragments would be stronger than what came before.